let me hand over directly to Ross so that we can make sure we get the benefit of your words of wisdom. We're going to aim to have Ross and Linda speak until about 2:05 or so, and then we'll open up the floor for discussion. Please.
Thank you very much, Wendy. John has given us a very extensive palette to draw from and to paint with. So I'll try and be as selective as I can. I think the main reason I was invited here today was because of the functions I'm now exercising in the context of this Humanitarian Emergency Response Review, which is an independent exercise headed by Paddy Ashdown, Lord Ashdown, to look at indeed what DFID has been doing in this area, the emergency response dimension, but in particular, as one looks ahead. Now it's a review of DFID, but in fact what we are doing is we're looking at this in a future perspective. The perspective is, how does one fit DFID best for what may befall us in the next decade or so? And recognizing very much that DFID operates not only bilaterally, but very much multilaterally through the UN system, through the Red Cross, through the NGOs. So it does try to look at that dimension as well. And indeed, Paddy Ashton and I are going this evening to New York to talk to John's successor and a number of other people there, and we'll be going to different places. We'll also be doing some country visits and so on. We'll be in Geneva and Rome. Now, in looking in that dimension, we're obviously, and this is an advertisement to all of you to give us your ideas. We're looking at seeing what indeed changes in the approach of DFID might well be welcome looking ahead. It's a future perspective. But we're also very particularly interested in new technologies, new approaches, processes, new players. So what I'll try and do is touch on a few of the areas that we've dealt with in Haiti. I was there in previous life as resident humanitarian coordinator many years ago, and then I was out very briefly at the beginning of this exercise. And I should maybe mention that the humanitarian emergency response is taking as its basis that we will be applying humanitarian principles of neutrality, impartiality, etc., so that we understand what the grounds are on which we're operating. To state the obvious, Haiti has not been a lucky country, and even before the earthquake, and of course now the cholera epidemic, it has had a succession of hurricanes each year, and it does point up John's last point, both in his article and in his comment this afternoon, which was indeed the need to anticipate, to predict, to try and see what we can do to minimize the impact of what seems to be the inevitable. But looking at, and I think we should recognize with the Haiti example that there were indeed significant achievements. There have been lives saved, but there were of course difficulties, and I think what we want to do is see where we're going and see how one can address those difficulties. As John noted himself, Haiti was a huge disaster, and indeed if we're looking to the future, I think we're concerned that Pakistan, we certainly can't blame Haiti on climate change, but you certainly can on Pakistan on climate change. And most of the people I've talked to so far come up with climate change being a major recurrent issue, and that we're likely in the natural disaster area to have to confront more and more of these kind of disasters. Now, these kind of disasters that we're talking about here is a mega disaster. It is, and indisputably, it has been, be it Haiti, be it Pakistan now, beyond the effective equipment of the international community to deal with. We have not got the tools, the horses, the approaches to do it. So we really do need to, if we're looking ahead to the future, to see how we can deal with this. Are we ever going to be able to manage with this? What are the resources that we can tap to deal with these kind of things? Now I start off with anticipation, which is prediction, mapping of trends, of capacity. We do know there's a hurricane season every year, and frankly, Haiti so far has been pretty lucky with a hurricane city. It hasn't been lucky with cholera, which it hadn't had for a long time, but let's keep our fingers crossed for the hurricanes. But also building the institutional capacity on the ground, so that when these things strike, and why we should be in the same kind of situation with the earthquake after so many hurricanes, with such little institutional capacity on the ground, is obviously not something that we as an international community should be proud of. We also need to understand that perhaps even look at our own priorities. As again John said, that most of the search and rescue process went well, the international one, but most people are saved by their neighbors. This was a record number by the international. The amount of money that's spent on this, if we're talking about money, is phenomenal. Now, of course, for PR reasons or domestic political reasons, it's often very attractive to have a firefighting team or whatever out there. But I mean, if it comes to money at some stage, we were in the end quite short of medical teams out there who did tens of thousands of operations, NGOs and indeed others, including from Latin America, dealing with these kind of things. So this is an issue of priorities as well. The assessment and analysis, needs assessment that we talk about, this is extremely artisanal at the present time. We have now satellite communications. We tried in Haiti with crowdsourcing, which was picked up from Kenya. But there's got to be a better way of getting a clearer take on this. If military people can read the license plate on your car, how is it that we can't know rather better what the extent of damage is without sort of saying, well, what do you think out there? So this is a major weakness in our system. Coordination has certainly been mentioned. The cluster approach, the importance of effective of coordination of coordinators. The leadership of clusters is an issue, and some people still think that the cluster is just an exercise of getting together and sharing information. That is a recipe for failure. If there is no leadership, management, direction, then you get what you have invested in. Under coordination, of course, the issue of there being many NGOs that we have seen in Haiti is one that should try and make sure that we improve on that in the future. The real-time evaluation talked about even a strategic cluster in some of these areas, which obviously makes sense. Again, the objective of these exercises, the objective of any coordination is to be more effective for the beneficiaries. That has to be the leitmotif, not making sure that every one of the 400 health NGOs can actually get into a room and have their 5 minutes in the sun. I mean, it's about results and impact, surely. Donor coordination has been mentioned, and the importance of impact. New partnerships. The issue of partnerships, of course, and we still have elements of having to improve the relationship between the UN agencies and the NGOs, but we actually have a range of others, and indeed one of the major issues that was flagged by John as well is bringing in the national organizations that are available, that they can be part of the clusters. Speaking English in Haiti didn't exactly promote integration or indeed benefiting from the inputs of the local organizations. But beyond that now we have, and I haven't got time to go into all the details of this here, but the whole military-civil dimension is one. It's much easier to deal with this in natural disasters where you act than in complex emergencies, where there's conflict and the military is on one side or another. And John mentioned the Hope For initiative. We also now, I think, need to start, if we're looking at mega disasters, what is the kind of role that one can expect or try and develop with host governments? If we look at Pakistan, here in the UK, I'm aware that the diaspora here has some reservations about funds being channeled through the Pakistani government. And yet there is a mechanism there that is available, which is beyond certainly what the international community can put together. How do you deal with that, with the complexities that we all know in relation to that? So that's a potential capacity for the future. We also have the role of the private sector. In Haiti, the private sector apparently has played quite a major role. There is a World Economic Forum paper on the role of and the activities of a number of the private sector. But again, if we're talking about stockpiles, for example, are there processes that we can borrow from the private sector that would allow just-in-time arrival that's without us having to have huge stockpiles in various places? And in that respect, the role of the diaspora in many countries, alas, that are beset by these disasters, there is a diaspora in many of the industrialized countries, not least of all if we talk about Pakistan here, or if we talk about Haiti, the United States, and Canada. And new actors. New actors in the humanitarian field, including China, India, the Arab states, the Arab Gulf states, maybe Brazil, where if we're looking ahead 10 years, we look at their economies. What's their potential, their interest in doing this? Are they likely to be able to start working with Western donors? Are they able to look at the issues of good humanitarian donorship? But they are potential out there, and have become, in many cases, very major actors. In Haiti, we had a lot of non-traditional actors from Latin America. Cuba was a very important player in the health field there. The issue of financing has been touched on, and the issue of humanitarian funding. Certainly Haiti has attracted extraordinary support, including from the private sector. Again, if we're talking about coordination, how do you manage institutions that are very well endowed and are doing their own thing with private money, not under the influence or the support of governments? But there are certainly these actors. Should we be looking in the kind of urban situation that is Haiti, or in countries which do have still an operating rural environment or agricultural sector? Should we be trying to use cash more rather than providing goods? Should we be, in this day and age, we can actually have cash transferred through cell phones. Should we use more of that? Is that a way forward? What's the role of cash in the future, beyond payment for rubble clearance? Security has been touched on, and I think in Haiti, as John has noted, that was, to put it mildly, overplayed, which kept many of the humanitarians actually in the log base. This was a natural disaster, and sure, there was criminality, but be careful where you go in New York. The issue of protection was addressed, but sexual violence, gender-based violence is certainly one that is out there, and will be one that needs to be addressed not only in complex emergencies, but in natural disasters as well, with these kind of displaced camps in particular, and the lack of law and order. The issue of leadership was front and center in Haiti. John's touched on it or talked about it. The importance of having the right people at the right place at the right time to do this, I think, is common ground. How you do this seems to evade many in a position to, one would hope are in a position to deal with this. Doing my rounds recently in relation to the UK survey, I was talking to an NGO, and I'm sorry I forget which one it was, but they have a kind of grading system for their heads of office, 1, 2, 3, and in relation to the extent to which they have experience to be able to deal with a major emergency or a minor emergency, and therefore they have a policy of stand aside if, for example, you have a 1 in a place that demands a 3 because it's in a major emergency. I don't know whether that kind of approach might be something that the international system might also look at in relation to its side, but I think one has to get into a systemic approach on this rather than the agonizing that John has just alluded to about how this person would feel and whether that was possible and how one could provide the necessary support. And of course, one needs to indeed have the kind of surge capacity that is essential to be able to respond quickly to coordination, but for the clusters and indeed for the emergency suppliers. I guess the final point I would make here, and I'm happy to come back for questions. I haven't touched early recovery, but I think that's extremely important. But lessons are learned, but many of the lessons that we have learned or have written down before are not learned. So now, I was going to ask the question, why have they not been learned? The why usually is that the people who have been through the previous experience are not the same people who are on the ground at the time when the next thing happens. So how do you move the lessons learning process away from the evaluators and into the hands or minds of those who actually will be in a position to actually respond to emergencies? That is a challenge that we really haven't cracked. And more guidelines are not necessarily, ladies and gentlemen, the answer to that. The bottom line is, how do we improve our system? Humanitarian reform, NGO or coordination, how do we get ourselves in a position where we can be more up to responding as quickly as is necessary to the millions of victims of these events that are still expecting or deserve at least support from other than their neighbors, the international community writ large. That's our question. Welcome suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ross.